Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to EnvironMental Podcast.
Yeah, this is our podcast where we investigate different aspects of sustainability each week.
And we are in the midst of talking about the fossil fuel industry.
Yes, and we actually, instead of doing 1 month for everything, we're going to take 2 months and just talk about energy, where energy is now, where it should be, where we think it should be, where it should go. And we're in week 2, so I feel like we have so much left to learn. I have so many questions.
Yeah, we do. We do have a lot left to learn because we started out this week with our research and we wanted to dive into a perspective on fossil fuel industries that we knew we wouldn't agree with, or we wanted a differing opinion. We didn't want to just, cognitive bias choose
Right.
a book that we would like fully agree with. This is a topic that is like highly controversial, so like we really wanted to kind of see what the other side is talking about, I suppose.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I kind of just want to, instead of, like you're saying, just take our cognitive bias and turn it into our 2 months of study or like a deep dive in investigation into that issue. See a whole thing, see the whole picture and make an informed decision around the whole picture.
Yeah. Which is probably going to be challenging because
it's challenging.
It's a lot of opinions out there.
Turns out it's mostly opinions.
Turns out, yeah. But the book we read this week is called The Moral Case of Fossil Fuels by Alex Epstein, unrelated to...
Did you check
that?
I did.
Okay. It was actually
I meant to check it and I kept forgetting.
To see if he was related to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, unless that was scrubbed from the internet, I did not find any evidence.
Could be.
Totally possible. But that's
this book was written in this book was written in 2014, so I do think a lot has happened in the past 7 years. So it's
7 years ago. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what were you doing in 2014? We met in 2014.
I have no idea.
We were like, "Hi, it's nice to meet you."
Oh, that's true. I think we did meet in 2014.
Yeah.
Anywho, yes.
Anyway,
place. The world was absolutely a different place in 2014. I think that is a good caveat to this book. I think that
yeah. However, I learned that, and then I did go stalk Alex Epstein on Twitter. He's still saying the same thing as he said in this book. So it's with like other different figures. So it's not that much has changed
from their side of things.
Their side of things, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So this book was really, I mean, as the title infers, it's really talking about kind of what benefits fossil fuels have brought to humanity in general.
This book is a love letter to fossil fuels.
It is. It's a little thirsty for like some attention from Exxon or something. Like it's
and it's a little like, it's such a good way to put it. It's a little like I feel shamed for, like, I feel like this person would say shame on you for just like not thanking fossil fuels every day.
Thanking fossil fuels every day.
Yes. Like, shame on you. Do you ever thank your mother? Like, by the way, yes, I do. But like it feels like that to me. It's a lot like they never get any credit. The fossil fuels have been are super important in the world. I'm not denying that
Mm-hmm.
either. I don't think anybody would, because fossil fuels, we talked about it last week, has been hugely beneficial to humanity and the growth of our species for,
Absolutely. Yeah. Our
you know,
ability to innovate and create the technology that we
totally.
rely on today. Totally. Right. And I think that's the biggest like
That's the point.
qualm I have with this book though, is that it assumes that environmentalists are not aware of that fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like not thankful for it, or like not thankful for progress or something along those lines. I'm not sure. It feels really defensive.
Almost entirely. Yeah. Um yeah, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of individual arguments that we could make with some of the points in this book.
I don't want to give
But
airtime.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just sort of like a lot. I think you used the term cherry picking, Ob, when
Yeah,
we were
when
speaking
we talked
about
about it
this
off air,
separately.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that was a really good term for sort of how some of the main points of this book were made. Um,
Yeah.
was that it was really cherry picking different arguments, and maybe like the most extreme environmentalists who think that we need to completely divest from fossil fuels like
Mhm.
today, and he's really running with that as if that's the perspective of everyone who considers themselves
Right.
environmentalist.
Or anybody that doesn't consider only human benefit as their standard of value. So, a few
Yeah.
things really stood out to me is that he really equated fossil fuels as like the thing to thank for everything. Um, which as I was listening, I was like, yeah, fossil fuels didn't do that, a doctor did.
Right. Human ingenuity did. That was like, yes, we used the tools
Right,
that we had.
right. I
Right.
use Asana every day. Um, but I don't
Not a hot sauna, Asana, the
us
program, asana.com.
and I don't equate my entire ability to create strategies to Asana. I use it
Right.
as a tool. And it feels like fossil fuels have been a really incredible tool for us to use and continue to be an incredible tool for us to use, but they did not cause the human ingenuity and the growth of our population and our world and like our ability to thrive.
Right. Right.
It's a great tool.
Mhm.
Thank you, but I can't ascribe all of this causation that he shares throughout this entire book to fossil fuels being
Mhm.
there.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like right, he's creating that relationship that like that cause relationship, but it's like if we didn't develop and if we weren't able to, back before the Industrial Revolution, like harness the power of fossil fuels, like humanity would have figured out something else.
Totally.
But but because we didn't, because the history like
Right.
played out this way, he's assuming that no other technology would have come along and
Right.
that was the only way that this could have happened. And I don't necessarily know if that's true. I think that
Right.
just sort of like a false like
This
equivalency.
is just what happened.
Like right, yeah, right. That is what
It's
happened. Right.
Yeah. Of course more energy equals more ability to thrive. What that energy comes from in this scenario doesn't super matter, because
Right.
if we had reliable energy from a different source, we still would be where we are today in terms of technology.
Or somewhere around it. Right. Yeah. Like
Right.
it's
Or
right.
right. We might be in a different space. It's like correlation versus causation.
Exactly.
Like Yeah, cool. We have less malaria. That's not because of fossil fuels. It's
Right,
correlated with fossil fuel use because we use fossil fuels as a tool on a regular basis.
right.
But I just can't get there with like because we've used more, we've done better. It's like,
Right. And that continuing to use more would only mean that more good things happen,
right.
which is definitely the argument that he's making, is
Yeah,
that like
a lot.
almost every yeah, it's kind of hits you like over the head like with this
Yeah.
messaging. And I mean, the terminology used is also something that that we definitely found kind of problematic. That every time he refers to fossil fuels, he uses the terms cheap and reliable, or cheap and
Yeah.
reliable energy,
Yeah.
which is sort of like, I feel like I'm being brainwashed a little bit. Like
Yeah.
it feels it just like a
Feels a
little
little like, are you convinced yet? It's cheap and reliable. Cheap and
right.
reliable. I really want to
You have to
drive
say it every
message home.
time.
Yeah, this is 6 hours of hearing the term every like 2 minutes. It had the opposite effect for me.
Uh-huh.
I got angrier. It was really triggering for me,
Yeah.
actually. The term reliable, sure. I don't know how reliable something can be that you know is going to end, but like the term cheap, using the word cheap when it comes to fossil fuels was really triggering.
Yeah.
It felt like, what about that's because it's subsidized. That's because it's invested in. That's because it's built on the backs of people that you exploit in areas that you exploit on a regular fucking basis. We do not pay the true cost of fossil fuels, and we never have. So, where did the term cheap come from? Every
Mm-hmm.
time he said that word, I just like check your privilege flashed into my brain, and I was like, I can't. I actually just stopped listening to it because I was so triggered by it. I have less than an hour left, so I was like, I think I fucking get it.
Yeah, yeah, you're not missing anything. I think that that was really what, like, brilliantly said. That it was, and he yet, on one hand, he continues to use this term that it is
Cheap
cheap,
and
that fossil fuels
reliable.
are cheap, doesn't ever mention any of the like ethical, socioeconomic issues around, yeah, areas of the world that are
Yeah,
heavily exploited for the production of fossil fuels. That's
yeah.
never ever mentioned.
He never says that, but there is like one sentence that said something about how there's one small part when he was talking about the risks of fossil fuels, and the one of the risks was like the attribution error or something like that, where his his point was that people have attributed terrible things to fossil fuels that shouldn't be attributed to fossil fuels, like corruption, because that happens in every large industry. And there was another example that he gave in that part. It's in
Mm,
chapter track 6 or 7. Um, that and I believe that was where I stopped
okay.
because I had hoped that he would cover that issue, and he glossed right over it with just saying like, "There's always a bad apple. It doesn't make it like." Basically, and I was like,
I know. It's the same. Oh my God. Yeah. It's like the way, it's like cool. You can gloss so easily over the moral cases against fossil fuels,
right,
but at the same time, you're saying that like the issues around solar and wind energy are so great that we cannot
right.
innovate and make those better.
We can't look at the big picture
Impossible.
of those. Yeah.
In right, that like the yeah, and that was really a trip for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just sort of like, you're really like, you're completely ignoring the
Right.
actual real history of areas of the world that have been, not only have had their environment completely destroyed, but like groups of people, governments, like wars have
Right.
broken out. Like it's not as simple
Right.
as cheap and reliable. Like, cheap for who? Cheap for you? You, because you get to go get gas cheaply? Like,
Right.
what scale are we on? What
Right.
what is this?
He does say what scale he's on,
And it's,
though.
yeah.
It is fully the American human scale.
Hmm.
His scale of value, is that what he
Hmm.
that's the term he used, is human benefit
Yeah.
and societal human benefit, and specifically, he doesn't say this part, but white societal human benefit.
It has to only be that, right? Because what, like, right? It is.
Right.
It's only the only examples he gives is that more fossil fuels make it easier for you to have more potential for happiness because you have the ability to drive to a class
Jiu-jitsu
that
class,
you.
yeah.
His example was he gets to do jujitsu.
Yeah.
Cool.
He did talk about hospitals in Kenya, um, having if they that less babies would die if they could have more energy, which isn't false. It's not false. It's not untrue.
That's not untrue, right?
So that helps bring more people in, but that's like one of the only examples that he gives that like isn't just directly related to like westernized happiness.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that part made me feel really weird as someone who's like, like you, I don't know. I don't think that privilege equates to happiness. I think like I'm like that like
Right.
completely, there's no, like I don't think, yeah, I don't see those as correlated in my mind.
He did
Um
though. That's his standard of value, which was felt weird.
But aren't there's like studies about areas of the world that are the happiest, that live the longest, that are the healthiest. It's not fucking America, dude.
No, it's
It's
not.
not America.
No,
Like, in no,
no.
you don't win on any scale. Like, except for like the most out of touch.
The most obese.
That we'd win.
We
Yeah,
went
the
on
least
obesity and
health
like heart.
COVID cases.
Yeah.
Like, right. So yeah, it's a lot of arguments that I think that just really don't take the full picture into account, yet at the same time his only argument
Yeah.
against environmentalism is that it doesn't take the full picture into account, and that
Right.
just feels really um hypocritical.
Yeah, it feels really backhanded. Um, he, yeah, it's really hard.
Right.
It's really hard to not be like, fuck this.
Hmm.
Um, because I don't want to stoop to this level of like, let's just talk shit about this other type of energy. Um, and when I say other, it's just like fossil fuels. We all live on the same planet.
Right.
Or this person, you know? But I
Right.
feel like this book stressed me out. It felt, there were parts where he was like, "Oh, climate change is a problem, but it's not a problem that we're experiencing right now, but it will be later."
Hmm.
Um, and, but it's not. but it's not now, and we
It's
can
not,
just use
yeah.
tech to make humans safe.
Right. That was an interesting thing. Right. So yeah, climate change is a possibility. Yes, he agrees with that, and he thinks that it's just not as intense as environmental scientists are projecting
Yeah,
or
and that we
have
shouldn't worry
projected.
about it.
Okay. But it's a gnarly assumption to say that human ingenuity powered by fossil fuels will be able to protect us against the catastrophic climate change that's to
Yeah,
come, that even he agrees is coming
it's
eventually.
coming.
Um, but what I couldn't quite get was like, like, to what degree, or what climate event would happen that would convince him that that's climate change, because it's
Right,
not like it's not going to all happen one day, like,
right,
where all of a sudden climates around the globe are completely altered. Like, this shit happens gradually, so
right.
like,
Right,
I
it's
don't.
like if you put a lobster in cold water or a toad in cold water and you turn the heat on, they acclimatize to the temperature of the water as it
And then they
as it
die.
in and then they fucking die. Yes. By the time
Right.
they realize that they are cooking, it's too late.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be in that situation, and I don't want to damn our future generations to that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't think just like flipping the switch on fossil fuels is the answer. This guy, like this whole book was black or white.
Mm-hmm.
What is your standard of value? You can't have a humanist standard of value if you value non-impact. And it's like, that's not true. That's, that's, then I must be just a total fucking outlier then.
Right. He essentially says if you don't like fast fossil fuels, you support killing humans. Like,
Right,
that's essentially, he's saying that, like, if you don't support fossil fuels and you think like renewable energy could actually power the world, you're okay with people dying
right,
because renewables can't power the entire world in their current capacity with the amount of
right,
energy that we use, which is like, you're
right.
making so many assumptions right now. Like, whoa.
About my character, yeah, he's also assuming a lot about our character. But and at the same time, this book is so much like, if we, like, you shouldn't be afraid of natural resources running out. You should be afraid to lose the freedom to pursue more energy. Now, I mean, that's like a very close paraphrase quote.
Yeah. No,
I
yeah.
believe that is in chapter 2. I wrote it down.
He uses that terminology that we're, yeah, losing the freedom, or our freedom to utilize energy throughout the book, for sure. Yeah.
Right. And that's basically that's it's not true, but what he's saying is he wants to be able to increase fracking. That's that argument, is that we should be able to frack more, because most of the earthquakes that are caused by fracking are small.
Aren't that bad. Yeah.
Aren't that bad. We could just go deeper into the earth. We can build the technology to go deeper into the planet, if only we were allowed the freedom to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That seems fine to him. But
Mm-hmm.
investing in technology for renewable energies, waste of money.
Too
I,
expensive, too challenging. We aren't smart
yeah, I don't like that argument. I
enough.
don't like how it has to be, or like an or argument.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the fossil fuel industry gets billions of dollars of subsidies every year, and is pretty heavily funded. The research is funded into all of that, and has been for 70, 80 years.
Yeah.
So we aren't there with renewables. And to say that it is a waste of money, like, does nothing to invest in it, to try to improve the technology, to try to figure out how we can retain renewable energy or share a grid over a larger period space, so that we can share renewables in the way that they operate,
Right.
is I think is really irresponsible. I think that's a very irresponsible message to write down.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think he's being like willfully ignorant at the fact that like every part of our infrastructure and society is built on facilitating humans a bit like use of fossil fuels. So of course it's easier to use them. Of course, like we haven't built the infrastructure for how to
Right.
harness and like store the renewable energy as well yet.
Right. Right. We need investments into
But
that. We need to focus on that. And
right,
I
right.
don't know how you can, on one hand, say we need more energy. We need the freedom to get more energy. We need money and technology to get more energy, but fuck a bunch of that
But
other
not
energy.
those options. Yeah.
Yeah. I
It doesn't make sense. No, yeah, that's what really didn't make sense at all to me. It was yeah, because fossil fuels already exist, that means that it's easier to just stay where we're at rather than innovate and make change
right.
because we're trusting that the fossil fuel industry will innovate and make change responsibly on its own.
Right.
That's not gonna happen.
That has never happened.
It's never
It has
happened.
never happened.
Companies are not good at self-regulating. We
No.
look at their track record too, and also look at all the fucking atrocities that they've caused around the globe and see that they're probably not gonna do that.
Right. So last week, one of our main questions was, can we separate the energy from the industry? And like, that was something that we wanted to see if it was possible to do. And
Mhm.
that was one of the reasons why we read this book. Like, to see the other side, to see if we could separate those two things out. He separates the energy from the industry because he doesn't, and it just feels like a lot of privilege and like capitalist supremacy and like like it just feels wrong to do. There's a bigger picture. I don't
Mhm.
think that I can separate the energy from the industry.
I
I think
agree.
that that's a question that I've now answered in for certain for myself.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna ask you what your actual answer was, and yeah, it's a no.
No, it's a no. It's
It's
a
a
no.
it's
These
only
things matter.
yes if you are operating um and totally cool with operating with your blinders on.
Yep.
Um and that's not how we operate
No.
here. So, yeah, you right. He tried very hard to convince the reader that about the moral case of using fossil fuels, but in doing so, he could only do so by ignoring every
Mhm.
social and just political. I don't even know the proper term that like can like encompass the issues that they've
Yeah,
caused.
it's a massive, like we talked about last week, they have their fingers in every pie. Like
Mhm.
he actively ignored all of that. He talked
Yeah,
about slavery as a thing of the past. Hi. Not That's not real.
it's not, unfortunately. Yeah.
It's not. And he talked a lot about the free world and on the same in the same chapter, and like just glossed over any he glossed over like corruption and political influence and like all of these like exploitations as a risk
Mhm.
that is worth continuing to use it, because way back in the 30s or 40s or 50s in London, people were like cool with breathing coal from the coal mine.
Yeah, that was his argument. Yeah.
That was literally the argument. Like, I don't want to, and we're saying this where, like,
People
in
didn't
this
understand the risks back then. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
I
Because
really want
people,
to respect this person, but it's just, I'm sorry, I can't.
I mean, no, like there were some parts of this book that were like, yes, of course, like there are things that are the arguments were true that I agree with. Like totally. We need to figure out how to make solar and wind power more reliable,
Yes.
and have a way to store that energy that
Yes.
is safe. I think that we do need to look into different ways to use hydroelectricity,
Yep.
um, and maybe
I
find some
also
middle
am,
ground that
yeah, I'm also not anti-nuclear energy by
no,
any
yeah,
stretch of the means.
right. I
Like,
think that that does need a good, like, good PR. I think that
needs a little reboot.
education and things, I think that the
Yeah.
public would be able to shift how we feel about that for sure. Um,
Yeah.
and those aren't
Because,
like
like,
lost causes. That's not like what? Yeah.
no, all of that needs more investment and more like focus on building the technology and building it safely, not less investment because because it's less developed.
Right.
Like,
It's like, no, that's not that current that in its current capacity could not meet our fuel needs, so like, we can't do it. That's
never mind.
essentially what he's saying. It's like it's not worth investing in because it can't do it right now. But it's
Right.
like, like yeah, can we not do a little bit? Can we not find a way to transition? Can we
Right.
not like yeah, it feels very dismissive. It's bizarre. Um
Bizarre is a really good term to use.
it's yeah. So yeah, it's really
Yeah. And I want to respect this human and I want to respect the career that he's built for himself, but I just fundamentally don't have the same standard of values.
mhm.
And I honestly, his standard of value is human benefit. I don't feel like he understands the industry that he is like representing while saying that his standard of value is of human benefit, because there are a lot of people there have been billions of people in over the course of the past 100 years through this industrial revolution that have not been the beneficiaries of this industry. And
Right.
I don't, and he ignores them to, and then just says that this is his standard of value. And I don't respect that.
Yeah.
I can't get there. Maybe if, I also understand like what is his business called?
Oh, um
I
it's
wrote
like an
it down.
institute for yeah,
The
it's a
Institute for Human Progress or something along those lines.
yeah.
Um,
It's very, very similar to kind of the content of the book where yeah,
yeah.
he really is an advocate for fossil fuel usage. He claims heavily that he is not being paid to make these statements.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but because you make those statements, you're actually like he does a lot of
He
like talks and he
he's
gets
being paid.
paid to be a speaker at a lot of
Yeah.
private companies. So
Yeah.
what comes
He's being
first, chicken and egg kind of thing. You're
paid.
paid by them,
You're paid.
but it's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fundamentally can't get there. And then I think, okay, what is my standard of value? Is he right that my standard of value is no impact? Because that's what he's saying. Is that there's only two things. It's like either human or no impact. Those are your two options. But it's not, because I also do agree that like as a species on this planet, and especially one that is so big and so good at using tools and creating technology that we can change the climate. I'm not anti that like we should that we shouldn't be changing the earth or we should focus on not having impact. I just think that like plants and animals and bees and insects and birds and all of these creatures also get to have a place in my standard of value.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what this person is saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that we shouldn't have an impact. Otherwise, I would be doing nothing. But like, I think we should have an impact. I just don't think that we should be like actively fucking over every other species on the planet's life.
Right.
In order to like carve out a space for ourselves. And I'm pretty sure that it's very possible for us to live together on our planet.
Balance.
In harmony.
Yeah. Yeah. Why isn't that an option in his perspective? Why can't there be,
Right.
ways where, we kind of transition away from this technology, which he knows and admits
Right.
is affecting our climate, and
or use it supplementally or just
Mhm.
use it less. Like we don't need more fossil fuels. We need more energy, and those are two
Right.
completely different things. And he's using them interchangeably, and I again think that that is irresponsible.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and it's so, yeah. I mean, the the arguments are kind of just sort of really cherry picked, and in a way that is quite frustrating because I think that it really oversimplifies how environmentalists actually feel, and I think that yeah, he kind of paints environmentalism in a really, really anti-human life way, and I
Yeah.
don't like
It's
that.
reminiscent of like pro-life, pro-choice, like how pro-life people see people that feel pro-choice is like
Mhm.
being pro-abortion, which is totally a different thing.
Mhm.
Not a pro-death, pro-abortion situation. It's just a pro, like, my body, my choice world.
Right, which arguably is freedom, don't and that's their favorite fucking word. Um,
Yeah. Maybe let's not go there because I think that that's really loaded for both of us, but it feels the same.
yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah.
It feels like that argument,
Mhm.
which also makes me so it's really triggering. It's really triggering. So this book was just
Yeah, it was frustrating. It's really frustrating. I wish that
I wish
um
it wasn't.
I wish that it wasn't also. Yeah, I think that some parts of this are, and I guess books have to kind of be sensational like this. Like, I mean, he
Do
was trying to
they?
sell books. So it's like if you really took like a really middle of the road approach, I don't think it would probably do as well because like
I
this
don't
is,
know if I agree. I mean,
I don't know.
I think that the audience is pretty clear here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Uh, I think anybody that's like, have you read The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels? That's a really good read. Yeah, they're like white, older, like
They were already convinced before reading the
they
book.
already, yeah, this is a confirming book.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he had actually approached this as what I had hoped that we were going to read, which is like essentially what we're talking about right now, a middle of the road, like we've been doing, yes, we should be thankful for fossil fuels. We cannot live without them right now. We need to figure out a way to transition out of them, but it's not as dire as like climate scientists have been predicting since the 70s. Like that message is powerful by itself. It
It's
doesn't
true.
need this like love letter to this industry that is exploitative and like corrupt and medium evil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the book I wish that this was. Yeah, like an actual guide, like roadmap to like how we can transition away and do so responsibly and in a way that, you know, that meets the concerns of folks who have the environment in mind, who really, want to protect different ecosystems. There are reasons why any environmentalist would fight against a hydroelectric dam. Like there are reasons for all of this, and it's not just that they don't want human life to progress. Like like
Right. Or
what?
that they value other things over human life. Like, I,
Right. It's a weird, yeah. So it just, yeah, it made conclusions where it really kind of shouldn't have, and yeah, it was
yeah.
definitely a bummer, um,
Yeah.
because I think it's just divisive. Like it doesn't need to be this divisive. Like
Right.
we all, like no one wants to give up their electricity. No one really wants to radically change what we've become accustomed to. But there
Right.
can be moderate change over time, and like why not try to do better? Just because
Right.
everything is easy now, because the system is rigged to be cheap and easy for, utilizing this energy type, like why not make it better though? Like does that
Right.
mean that, like, I don't know. Yeah, that I don't understand that. It's like somebody who before the Industrial Revolution who was selling like wood stoves and is like, I don't think that new energy is a good one because I want to sell more.
I'm also sure that that happened, Like,
Yeah.
this feels like I wanted to say, like, buddy, you are on the wrong side of history here.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure if we dug deep enough, we could probably find some wood stove salesmen that wrote some shit. I mean, the paper
Coal
wasn't
is
as
bad. Yeah.
right. I'm sure we could find that. And
Yeah.
you don't need to
You
switch to
don't need.
that. You just need to buy another stove.
Right. Yeah. There's always
Like,
pushback against, ingenuity.
but I'm so confused in this context. Pushed back against ingenuity from somebody that is a proponent of ingenuity, who then, like, very loudly and proudly proclaims that he is not being paid off by the fossil fuel industry,
Yeah.
which, like, we talked about this separately, but he has this whole thing in the very beginning where he's like talking to a Greenpeace person, and she's like, "Do you want to sign this thing against anti-fossil fuels or whatever?" And he said, "I think we should use more fossil fuels." And he has this like long, like, shower conversation with himself, with like, and then he he says, "I think we should use them more." And he's like, "She could have said this and she could have said this other thing, but what she actually said is, you must make a lot of money." And his response to that was like, "I am not paid off by the fossil fuel industry."
It was All of that was so bizarre because it was a hypothetical fake conversation with someone that and where he just made up their responses. Like this
Yeah.
didn't happen. And it really
Right.
did feel like when like maybe he had sort of an interaction with a Greenpeace person, and then like
Right.
later on in the shower was like playing out what he could have said in, in his head. Like you
Yes.
plan the
We
argument.
all do that, but not all of us write a book about it, right? Like,
I was just
yeah.
like, this
And
is
so her response,
cringing. I was
I
cringing.
know, I was too. And
Yeah.
because her response was like, "You must make a lot of money," which is like, had nothing to do with him. Like, nothing to do with her knowing who he was or him being paid off by the fossil fuel. It was really just her basically being like, "Check your privilege."
Yeah.
Like, you don't,
If she had hypothetically said those words, then yeah,
if
that's
that had
probably what she
happened.
was saying. Yeah.
Yes. If that was actually a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Right. And so she was basically just being like, check your privilege because you are in a situation that not everybody else is in, and it is not cheap and reliable. Like, that's what she's saying.
Hmm.
Like, And his response was I am not paid off, which is just felt so out of touch. And it was like that was in the first chapter, and at that point I was just kind of like, oh fuck, what are we getting ourselves into here? Like,
there's really nothing more that would make me think that you are getting paid off more than you making this completely fake argument in which you get the opportunity to conclude the argument by saying you're not paid off by this industry, where it's like, cool, dude.
right. I wasn't thinking that before, but
now I am. Yeah. Now I'm like, oh, so okay, maybe you're indirectly being paid by them, or like, I don't know.
I think that his relationship with the
I don't
fossil
know.
fuel industry is pretty fucking direct.
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
What? Oh, that his relationship with the fossil fuel industry is pretty direct.
It's pretty direct. Yeah. I mean, he does have a business in which he lobbies on behalf of the fossil fuel industry. And so I'm sure he's got some funders that are.
Yeah.
Got their hands in some pots.
Definitely not. It's all donations that come into his his nonprofit,
right,
through an independent lawyer, and he has no idea where those funds come from. It's not, okay.
It's not from it. It says the name. It doesn't say Exxon, so I'm not being
right.
off.
Right. Hey, listen to The Crisis if you want to learn how fossil fuel industry pays off politicians and business owners to do things without having a name associated with it. The Crisis, the podcast.
The Crisis podcast. Yeah. Highly recommend.
They just lay it out how the industry pays for things without having their name on it. So
it's pretty easy to do. Yeah, I mean, it's like, of course they wouldn't directly. It's such a silly. Yeah, it's a very, very frustrating read. But a position that a lot of folks take.
Yep.
It is an easy position to take because you want to continue not thinking critically about the things that you may have contributed to that have done bad in the world. You want to look at your life in rose-colored glasses.
Yep.
And you don't really want to fund progress. That's
you have, and you can do it all under the guise of the benefits of growth within humanity. If you want that, just read this book. You'll feel a lot better. But I don't think it's for our audience.
It's definitely not.
I'm not going to recommend it to you because you're going to get mad.
Yeah. It is an interesting kind of, like, as frustrating as it is, I think it's good to look at stuff like this. It's always good to kind of see how these conversations are playing out in circles that are not your own. And I think that not looking at this is irresponsible, and we don't want to do our research that way. We want to. So, like, but he made a lot of claims in this, and I think, and this month we're going all in research. So next week we're going to talk about more things that we've independently researched. We'll give you a bunch of resources that we'll dive into, because he makes a lot of claims about, about climate scientists and things and predictions that have been made that have not come true, and like, climate related deaths and global malnutrition and stuff, and all of these things that he claims have been made better by fossil fuels.
Right.
So I really wanted to investigate the claims that he's made and really kind of see what climate scientists are basing their, studies.
I want to know what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like, without the glasses, the rose-colored glasses. Like, I genuinely now have heard every point from news sources and books and media. And I think the only thing we can do is like, yeah, read deeper, look at studies, talk to
Scientific.
like learn from scientists.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another caveat. I think he is not a scientist. And
He
that
says he's been studying climate for a long time, though. I don't know.
I'm okay. Me reading things that's I mean, I don't I will take the word of a scientist over the word of a philosopher who clearly benefits off of
Yes.
having a perspective that is this.
Yep.
Do I think all scientists are good? I think that, some studies are funded in a way that is semi-corrupt. I definitely think that there are flaws in how, some studies are done for
Right.
sure.
On
But
both
yeah,
sides of the line.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to doing more research and kind of really kind of wrapping
Yeah.
my head around
What do you want to know?
what do I
Because
want to know.
essentially next week you're going to do research and I'm going to do research and then we're going to tell each other about what we learned. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to like overlap. It's good. There's going to be some overlap, but I want to
Yeah.
like,
I
what
want
do
to
you
know
want to
what folks like what is currently be what's the accepted research that's out there that, I've heard the claim that 99% of scientists believe that climate change is real and will have effect on the global ecosystem within the next few years. Like it's gone
Yeah.
there's a timer countdown thing happening in New York City. Like,
Yep.
what is that all based on?
Yeah.
And I mean, I also, yeah, we did a bunch of research into oil subsidies and tax breaks too.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
something
something
I want to know
really
more
I
about
spent some
is
time on
like
this week.
I want to know more
Yeah.
about like money. Like
Hmm.
where does money go?
Who's
What
funding this
who's
research?
funding what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to spend some time looking into funding for all the different types of energy. Um, because that's really a huge driver here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I also want to know more about the risks behind solar and wind. I
Yeah.
know,
About them more than the risks of actual fossil fuel usage, which is weird. Yeah.
yeah, I understand it a little bit. Um, Mostly because I live with a solar scientist. Well, he's a solar engineer. So and we're working on that with our house, but like I don't understand it
Hmm. Yeah,
fully.
that's a
And
good one. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I I don't yet know all of the things that I want to research really
what about places? Like the most like where is
Mhm.
the oil? Where is the fossil fuels? Like when
Mm.
he talks so much about like the availability, what does that mean? Where is it? Is it really
Yeah, he
deep?
makes a lot of claims about
About
there being a ton of oil, but it's and he acts like that's
where?
just easy to get, but we know it's not. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I also kind of want to do some digging into really some of the injustices of the fossil fuel industry in general that were completely left out of this book. That I
yeah.
think if you're arguing a moral case and you leave out the fucking atrocities
Yeah.
over the course of the past 70 years,
Right.
really doing a disservice.
Can you
So
also, when if you're gonna like look into evil shit, just see like He talked about rare mines, also rare mines for getting stuff from the solar and
Oh yeah.
the wind, um, like building those infrastructures.
Yeah, there
And
are, right. There are more rare elements that are used in those. Yeah.
yeah, would you mind like just kind of adding that sort of, because it seems like when there's mining and there's a lot of labor and stuff, that's
Hmm.
when we start to like tip really into those injustices when there's a lot of the industry pieces happening. So I'm curious to see if there's a similar type of
Yeah.
injustice when it comes to renewable energies, or if that's something that is like actively being fought against in the renewable industry, which in my mind it is. But I've been wrong. I don't know very much about all the stuff that happens in the world. We
Right.
can't, right? So that's something I'm curious about.
Yeah, right. Is right. Who is funding the creation of these renewable energy sources, and are they operating ethically? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right. We it would be an assumption to say that they
To think
were,
that they're
but
right.
they're still a business, so it's totally possible that
Right.
they're still,
There's still an energy business,
yeah,
and the energy business like system structure is morally corrupt. So,
it's a good question. Yeah,
yeah,
gosh. Yeah, guys, if anyone listening or watching has any questions, then definitely leave them in the comments or let us know. You can hit us up. Um,
we are not hard to find.
mm-mm. Not hard to find at all. Dandelion branding. You can also find us Living Brand Directory.
Sure can.
Dandelion underscore branding on Instagram.
Yep. Underscore the living brand on Twitter. Hit
Pretty
me
much
up.
everything is in the description of this video, actually, if you just
Yeah,
scroll
just
on
scroll
down.
down. Subscribe and then scroll down.
Yeah, while you're at it, join the club. So, yeah, as we investigate this stuff further and just kind of digest it and then put it
Just
on out
talk.
there for you and talk about
Yeah.
it.
We
Yeah.
just talk about it.
Yeah, right. These conversations should be happening. I mean, there's no harm in
Right.
doing research. Yeah,
Yeah. And
we,
this is literally, guys, this is literally just us having a conversation about this stuff. We're sort of telling you, but a lot of it is just us bouncing back and forth and like just discovering and talking and feeding off of each other in terms of like the information that we are learning. Please have these conversations with your friends and family.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening in the world, and there's a lot that we can learn from each other, and folks are doing really good work. But there's a lot of folks that aren't also,
Yeah.
and it's just as important to learn about them.
Yeah.
So
To root them out and expose them.
that's not necessarily the goal of this podcast,
No.
but it's perhaps an unintended consequence.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that this book offered an interesting perspective on what the other argument is, and
Yeah. It's a
and
shame that it's an other argument to me.
yeah.
You know? It's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that things go in the States, where it's just got to, if you're not with me, you're against me kind of a thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
such a,
It felt like that. And it's like, if I
yeah.
have to choose that after listening to this, I'm against you, bro.
Yeah, I don't like being put in that position. I'm automatically going to be like, all right, fuck you. Yeah. Like, I don't need
Yep.
you, dude. I mean, like, I,
Nope.
yeah, I mean, I am thankful for my electricity, and yes, I have a car that I drive, and um but I am also totally cool with working towards a future that allows this
Right.
planet to live. So
Right.
we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
See what we learn.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening.
Have a beautiful day.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Next time. Bye.